What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, thanks to the wicked team over at Shozy Store, we're going to be checking out Dr. Wu's movie collector, Einstein, which is their take on a Transformers Dark of the Moon Brains. Now, if you'd like this or any of their previous characters, then make sure to check out those links down below. And here we have Brains fully transformed into a full-blown Lenovo ThinkPad, which was the alternate mode that this guy did very briefly convert into in the movie. Not only is this a character who I never expected to see the light of day again, but also an alternate mode. To think that that crazy Einstein looking bot can transform into a full-blown laptop, I honestly think is sick. So as we check out the details, to be fair, this has been really nicely sculpted, even down to the inbuilt webcam, which, judging by the personality of this character,
Get out of here!
I could totally imagine him using in order to spy on both Michaela and Carly. To be fair, even the keypad I think has been really nicely sculpted and painted, and if you wanted to, you could totally take that screen, compress it down again to create for an even thinner look. To think that crammed on the inside of this guy is a full-blown robot, I think is super impressive. I mean, check that out. To be fair, visually, there really isn't anything which I think is too noticeable. It would have been awesome had they maybe spray painted this in a metallic silver, but I do believe that Dr. Wu have quite a few rather funky repaints coming out for this guy, so maybe one of those is worth looking into. But the second that we spin him here to the underside, there is Brains completely flat packed, which I really think just goes to show the level of compression that does go down when it comes around to his transformation. Seriously, this is sweet, and considering that this guy is no bigger than a Hasbro core class, I think again, alongside their version of Wheelie, Dr. Wu have done an awesome job. Loading our way into some comparisons, first up we are whacking out Dr. Wu's Little Monster, which was their take on a Revenge of the Fallen wheelie. Now, when this guy was released, I never thought they would be able to top it when it comes down to engineering, but seriously guys, this Einstein has absolutely done so. I think it's way more challenging from a design perspective to get one of those Michael Bay robots to transform into a full-blown laptop in comparison to a tiny remote control car. So whilst this still is easily the best version of wheelie ever made, I think when it does come down to Dr. Wu's action movie lineup, Brains right now absolutely reigns supreme, and I think so even more as we begin to whack out some of the official figures, such as the Studio Series Dark of the Moon Bumblebee. This figure is more or less exactly the same when it comes around to scale, although would maybe scale slightly better with some of the Transformers movie masterpiece figures, such as MP-03 Bumblebee. If you guys were to kind of humor me and say that Brains could transform into a Cybertronian laptop, honestly guys, paired alongside this figure, I actually think the scale is kind of spot on. Entering our way into this guy's transformation, despite him being on the smaller side, he is absolutely packing a punch when it does come down to complexity. So for the first step, spin this guy here to the underside. You are then going to take a hold of the hip skirt and begin to fold this here downwards, just like that. Then for the next step, we can come here to the left hand side of the screen. We are now going to detach this panel here away, exactly like this. And again guys, make sure to do the same here on the opposite side. Now that's complete, we can then take a hold of this panel and begin to slide that there backwards, again making sure to do the same on the opposite side. Then what we're going to do is take a hold of this component and begin to spin this here upwards. Also do the same here for this side, so snap that there into place. Then what we can do is make use out of this hinge joint. We are firstly going to hinge this here backwards. We are then going to take a hold of these components and begin to hinge these here inwards, just like that. Now these tabs eventually are going to slide into these slots. So to begin with, you are going to compress this here down like that, and then you are going to compress this all of the way until eventually it does very nicely snap there into place. Then for the next step, we can take a hold of these components and begin to fold these here all of the way up, just like that. Again, making sure to do the same here on the opposite side. So flip that baby there all of the way up, just like that. Then we are going to take a hold of this component and begin to swing this here downwards. Again guys, let's make sure to do the same here for this side. Then for the next step, you are now going to take a hold of this panel and fold this here backwards, just like that. Then we are going to spin here to the back side of this guy, which will now become the front part of the robot. So packed on the underside are a pair of hip joints. We are first of all going to begin to bring this here down just like that, and now we are going to take this panel and snap this into what will become the base of the foot. Once that's complete, we can then take a hold of the front part of the foot and slide this here downwards just like that. Now what we're going to do is spin here to the side of this figure. We are now going to make use out of this hinge joint and begin to fold this here all of the way down just like that. Then what we're going to do is, making use out of these double hinge joints, is compress this here all of the way back just like that. Now we are going to make use out of this ball joint and spin the foot all of the way around. Then for one final touch, we can take a hold of the shin and pretty much straighten it up here with the knee until eventually you are left with a leg design which should be looking just like this. Now we are going to flip here to the opposite side. So again guys, making use out of that hip joint, bring that baby there downwards. We can then take a hold of this panel and snap this there into place, and then take the front part of the foot and slide this here also downwards. Then we are going to begin to straighten out this ball joint just like that, and now we are going to make use out of this hinge joint, slide this here down, and then begin to slide these panels here backwards all of the way. Now that's complete, we can then begin to spin around here at the ankle, and as we did on the opposite side, all you're going to do here is begin to straighten up that shin with the knee joint until eventually the leg design should be completely transformed and should be looking exactly like this. Now that's complete, we can then spin our attention here to the arms of this guy. So first of all, you are going to begin to arch this here backwards all of the way. Then what we're going to do is making use out of this ball joint, hinge this here upwards, and now we are going to rotate all the way around here at the shoulder joint and then begin to fold this here forwards, exactly like that. Now for the next step, you are then going to begin to rotate around here at this ball jointed elbow. We can then spin around here at the bicep until all of that really nice circuitry begins to line up with each other. Once that's complete, we can then slide the hand here down, take a hold of this panel, and again guys, make sure that it is sitting exactly like that. And again guys, the time has come for us to do all of the same steps for the opposite side. So detach this grey panel just like that, then begin to slide this baby here backwards, extending upwards by utilising that ball joint, and then we can make use out of the shoulders, begin to swing these here downwards. Now we're actually going to crunch this here forwards all of the way. Then we're going to make use out of this hinge joint and slide it there out to the side. Now taking a grip of the shoulder, we are now going to rotate around here at this ball joint just like this. Then for a finishing touch, we are going to make use out of this forearm swivel and also line up that circuitry much like we did do on the opposite side. We can then take the hands and begin to slide these here downwards, and then for one final touch, at least when it does come down to the core robot, we are now going to take a hold of the skirt piece and begin to slide this down in order to cover this guy's crown jewels. Then for the final step, we are now going to take Brains' head sculpt and pretty much detach this away just like that, and then we are going to extend this here upwards, and there is Einstein now fully transformed into his pretty funky looking robot mode. Smoking his way through the battlefield, here we have Brains now fully transformed into his robot mode. And considering that this guy did come out of that flat pack laptop, honestly I think they've done a banging job. For the most part, this guy is very close to how he did actually appear in the Transformers Dark of the Moon movie. So as we check out the details, the head sculpt is looking wicked. I definitely think that Michael Bay had a thing for Albert Einstein when it came around to Transformers 3, considering that both Brains and Q share a striking resemblance to him, especially when it comes down to that crazy hairdo. This guy really does appear as if though he's been electrified into the battle. And to be fair guys, the rest of the design has been really nicely painted and sculpted, even down to the cybernetics that you can see there for the forearm. This design kind of came out at a time where Michael Bay appeared to have been pushing for slightly more humanoid designs. So when it does come down to his robot form, I don't believe in the movie too much of the laptop actually integrated into the design, which is why when you do spin him here to the side, there is a tiny amount of backpack. But to be fair, considering the scale of this figure, I think they've mostly done a really well done job. I can't say that this bothers me in the slightest, and there's also some really nice details there along the side of the legs, including I guess some extra fans which are a carryover from that laptop mode. So overall this is a really sweet looking figure, and despite this being the first, I think they've done an amazing job. Even if we do see this guy somehow make his way into the main line, I doubt that he will be half as accurate as this bad boy, and let's all face it, alongside both Skids and Mudflap, I really do think this character in general is kind of in limbo as to whether or not he ever will be made. But there is no denying that paired alongside Wheelie, it is wicked to finally have the dynamic duo back in action. Now, accessory time. Unfortunately, this guy doesn't really include any, which I do think is a slight missed opportunity, as when it did come round to Age of Extinction, this guy was totally rocking an electrified headpiece, as well as a full-blown walking stick, so that would have been kind of cool. But much like Wheelie, we do see the return of the collector's card, although this guy does rank incredibly low, so to my surprise, I have no idea how he actually made it into the Age of Extinction movie and wasn't blasted to bits by those Decepticons. Turning to the posability of brains, this guy is actually stacked with joints, although considering his size and the way he transforms, I will say that he is kind of fiddly to mess around with. So to begin with, the head is on a ball joint. This will look up and down. It can then tilt side to side and also turn both left to right. The shoulders have no issues in kicking both forwards and backwards. There's also a hinge joint which allows them to kick out roughly to that far. The elbow can bend and also acts as the bicep joint. In addition to that, there is a forearm swivel, and the thumb and the 3 fingers can also be moved independently. There is also an ab crunch, although unfortunately this doesn't really lock into place, meaning that when you are just messing around with this figure, to be fair, it can become a little annoying. And the same can also be said for the hip joints. These are conjoined on the same post, so the second that you want to move one of them, the other unfortunately does follow. But with that being said, they don't have any issues in kicking out to the side, although I can't say that I'm crazy about this hinge joint here, which is mainly used for transformation. It doesn't really lock into place again for robot mode, so when you are messing around with this guy, more than likely I think it's just going to get on your nerves. Despite that though, the knee has no issues in kicking backwards. And then finally, the ankles are rocking ball joints, so these can hinge backwards, they can hinge forwards, in and out, as well as turn both left to right. And if you were to make use out of that transformation joint, you can definitely get this guy in, to be fair, some pretty dynamic poses. Blasting through some robot mode size comparisons, prepare for trouble and make it double, because first up we are whacking out Dr. Wu's Revenge of the Fallen wheelie, and honestly guys, I think these two make for a killer pairing. As I mentioned previously, I doubt that both Hasbro and Takara Tomy will ever reapproach these two in the future, so if you are like myself and you want the best versions of these characters into your collection, then honestly, right now, I think Dr. Wu have definitely got us covered, because the second that we bring out the core class Bumblebee, as you guys can see, he is still an incredibly small piece, yet he's absolutely packing a punch in the detail department. Next up we have the Studio Series Deluxe class Bumblebee, so I think when it comes down to the actual scale as seen in the movie, maybe this guy is a little too big. But you know what guys, I really don't think he looks too bad paired alongside the movie masterpiece Bumblebee. And for a few comparisons purely for fun, first up we are whacking out the Studio Series Galvatron, who technically Brains is responsible for the creation of, considering that he was deciphering all of the information that came from both the heads of Sentinel Prime and Megatron. So, wrapping up on this review for the Dr. Wu movie collector, Einstein. I think they've just gone ahead and dropped an absolute belter. When it does come down to this guy's laptop mode, it looks amazing, especially for something which can transform, which speaking of, the robot mode is near enough dead on to the actual CG design. The painting and the sculpting I think is looking sharp, the plastic quality feels great, at no point do I feel as if though anything on this guy is going to break. The only downside would be that considering how small he is, some of the joints do feel rather fiddly to mess around with, so when it does come down to posing, unfortunately this guy is kind of a chore, but to look at, he is absolutely the part, and stacked up alongside their previous little monster, these two make for a wicked pairing. So if you are like myself, a big fan of those Michael Bay movies, then honestly guys, I would definitely recommend this, as like I've mentioned, I don't think this is a character ever likely to see an official release. For those of you who are looking to pick this bad boy up, then definitely be sure to check out the links down below. I would love to get your guys' thoughts down in the comments. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next video, transform and roll out!